It's feared Cyclone Alfred has claimed its first victim in New South Wales, hours before it's expected to make landfall. The driver of a car swept off a bridge clung to a tree, desperately communicating with rescuers before disappearing into the floodwaters. Thousands of residents have now been evacuated as destructive winds and heavy rain lash the coast. The latest outlook has Cyclone Alfred crossing the mainland coast between Noosa and Beenleigh on Saturday. There are at least 26 orders to evacuate across northern New South Wales. The state's SES has responded to more than 4,200 incidents and 120 Defence Force personnel are being deployed. 38,000 properties in New South Wales are still without power, and the number of evacuation centres has now increased to 20. Tonight we have reporters across the impact zone, and our meteorologist Tom Saunders will bring us the latest cyclone modelling. We begin tonight's coverage with reporter Fiona Willan in Lismore.
Parts of northern New South Wales vanishing underwater, but this is just a small taste of what's expected to come. Cyclone Alfred is now breathing down people's necks.
At the moment, we have over 29,000 dwellings under evacuation order, 19,000 people involved in that.
In the Northern Rivers region, Lismore residents were among the first urged to flee. And at local evacuation centres, bed numbers are multiplying.
168 people stayed here overnight, but we're expecting more people to come during the day, and the estimated numbers are possibly over 500.
It is a little bit scary, and we've got some really strong high winds.
Not too bad. A bit harder with these ones because, she's got autism and stuff, so harder for her to settle.
Yesterday afternoon, thousands of people were asked to leave their home. The message that we're reporting today is that that has happened.
Things didn't go as smoothly in the Byron Shire.
The evacuation centres, we've not been delivered just the basic things that are required for people to have food, tea and coffee, even an evacuation sign so people know where to go.
But outside, the danger is clear. This tree was uprooted outside a pub in Byron Bay, as gale force winds also brought down power lines.
This morning we had 44,500 customers without supply. Tweed Heads, Murwillumbah, Ewingsdale, Byron Bay were the hardest hit.
Thousands of State Emergency Service volunteers have been getting ready for Alfred's arrival. And today, confirmation further reinforcements have arrived.
We have 178 ADF people already here with 30 high clearance vehicles. So we have the capacity now to get through some of that higher floodwater.
The danger is torrential rain in the hours before the cyclone makes landfall will bring flash flooding and cause rivers to rise. At this stage, the Wilsons River is expected to top the levee at 11 metres sometime tomorrow, but it's not known how high it could go. In 2022, the floodwaters here in Lismore reached nearly 14.5 metres. Authorities are pleading with the public to not risk driving through flooded roads.
Our sincere hope is that the community gets through this without any loss of life, and that we can, when this is all over, focus on the rebuild.
Well, a search is ongoing for a man swept into floodwaters in northern New South Wales. Fiona Willan is live for us at Lismore City's SES base, and Victoria Pengilli is in Murwillumbah this evening. Fiona, we'll start with you. What can you tell us about the latest warnings?
Well, Nakari, the number one warning is to stay away from floodwaters. Tonight, the search for that driver who tried to cross a bridge near Dorrigo is underway. His car was swept off the bridge into a river. He managed to get out of the vehicle and attach himself to a tree, but he has since vanished, and police are now leading that operation. Earlier today, the SES said that it had conducted 5 flood rescues overnight, and a short time ago I have confirmed with the SES that 88 warnings are currently in place across the state's northeast. Now that includes 26 evacuation orders. The advice is to keep an eye on the hazards near MEAP for the latest information. And if you do need to evacuate, 20 evacuation centres have now been set up in the area, and we are told that more will open as needed. Nakari?
OK, Fiona Willan in Lismore, thank you. Victoria Pengilli is in Murwillumbah. Victoria, what is the weather looking like there?
Well, look, it's been a pretty wet and windy day here. The rain has been coming down pretty consistently. Much of the town lost power last night and a few phone towers also went out, which is an eerie sign of what's to come. There has been some minor flooding in low-lying areas and the Tweed River is currently sitting at about 3 metres, which is well below the peak of 6.5 metres seen back in 2022. It is rising pretty steadily though. We were there a short time ago and some locals warned us to get to higher ground. The major concern though is if the rain continues to fall, the water could breach the river banks and put hundreds of homes and businesses right in the firing line all over again. It's not called the Northern Rivers for nothing. But this is not a normal sight. In Murwillumbah, the town's riverfront properties were awash and parks were transformed into inland seas.
As of last night, the wind and the rain, and it's coming in waves, I suppose, and it is starting to flood here.
For some, the nerves are starting to set in.
I was feeling pretty chill, but now that the rain's setting in and we don't know what the cyclone's going to do, getting a little bit nervous watching the water rise.
Others are taking it all in their stride. Are you concerned?
No, not really. No. Whatever happens, happens. You just got to put up with it, haven't you?
As one of few businesses still with power, Murwillumbah's bakery did a roaring trade.
Pies are flying off the shelves. Hopefully the wind stays away because we don't really want them, flying off the shelves.
The town's evacuation centre is nearing capacity and council flood cameras show bridges are starting to go under. Farmers have been warned to move animals while they still have the chance.
To provide support for that, we have opened up travelling stock routes for people to be able to move livestock if it is necessary to higher ground.
Paul Weir lost 130 head of cattle 3 years ago. He's sworn it'll never happen again.
We've changed our action plan, our flood plan. We live on a floodplain, so we understand floods. But the information we received on the 22 wasn't quite correct.
Further south in Lismore, the slow deluge is bringing back painful memories.
Horrible. It was horrible. My shop was a bit further down. The water blew in the door. It took everything out, including a few machines.
Putting on a brave face as more rain is forecast to come. Victoria Pengilly, ABC News, Murwillumbah.
Well, the damage from Cyclone Alfred is already visible on the New South Wales coast. Wild tides and storm surges are eroding some of the state's most popular beaches. Experts say it's to be expected, but the worst of the weather is yet to come.
With Cyclone Alfred on their doorstep, communities on the edge of the ocean are securing what they can.
And it's roaring, absolutely roaring. So I've tied it all up, made sure everything will slash down, and it should be all right.
This is a serious issue for those communities, particularly low-lying communities close to the coast as well.
High tides and damaging surf are starting to erode Byron Bay's famed beaches.
When those waves have so much energy, that's when they actually need to lose some of their energy, and by that means they actually take that sand away from the beach.
So there has been coastal surges. There are still some considerable high tides that are occurring. A number of the beaches have been affected, but we're still very early in this cyclone hitting the sea.
As water levels rise, animals are also being displaced. This eel was rescued after washing into a gutter in Ballina.
You're a bit lost there, mate.
While a turtle found itself lost on the streets of Benora Point.
I'll help you out, get you back in the water, safe.
Several major flood warnings have been issued for rivers between Port Macquarie and Tweed Heads. Coastal communities like Ballina will be first in line for a battering when Alfred arrives. Sandwiched between rivers and the ocean, the risk that floods could clash with a storm surge means that homes like these are particularly vulnerable. Sam Ryder moved into his home on the Richmond River just 4 weeks ago.
Like, the attitude from most of the people in this area is pretty casual, so we'll see what happens. It could be bad. We put the sandbags out just to kind of stop the wake and whatnot. Like, you'll never keep water out completely.
Other locals aren't so relaxed.
If that water comes down from Lismore and that surge is still here, good night.
One more restless sleep before the cyclone's long-anticipated arrival. Sean Turrick-Goodwin, ABC News, Ballina.
Cyclone Alfred is causing a multitude of impacts of several days. ABC meteorologist Tom Saunders takes a detailed look at how the system will evolve this weekend.
Well, before Cyclone Alfred makes landfall, wind gusts today recorded up to 120 kilometres per hour at Cape Byron. Peak waves off Brisbane climbed to nearly 17 metres yesterday, and more than 400 millimetres of rain has drenched Dorrigo in 48 hours. And the severe weather has been ongoing for most of the week, including more than 48 hours with peak waves exceeding 10 metres off Tweed Heads, and already 3 consecutive days with damaging wind gusts at Byron Bay. Tonight, Alfred is less than 100 kilometres offshore and is forecast to cross the Moreton Bay Islands overnight before reaching the mainland on Saturday. It's during this period when destructive gusts may occur just south of the eye on the coastal fringe, along with the highest threat of erosion when high tide occurs around 4 a.m. The wind and wave threat will gradually ease after landfall. However, for most regions, the worst impacts will arrive under Alfred's deluge of rain, hundreds of millimetres on Saturday alone, focused in on Brisbane, the Gold Coast and the Northern Rivers. And the latest modelling now has torrential falls persisting into Sunday, another 300 millimetres possible near the border, while heavy rain also spreads west and flooding is possible on the New South Wales northern slopes and ranges. The remnants of Alfred will finally shift south and spread heavy rain to Sydney by the time we hit Monday. By then, widespread flooding across both southeast Queensland and northeast New South Wales.
4.5 million people live in the path of the storm, with the impact expected to be felt along a 600-kilometre stretch of coast. The system is on track to hit Queensland's Bay Islands after midnight before moving over Brisbane tomorrow morning. Mark Willisey has more.
It's a threat not seen here in a generation. Ferocious winds ripping massive trees from their roots on the Gold Coast. The consequences devastating, with homes crushed by falling branches. Tens of thousands are without power and fearing what's still to come.
Not looking forward to tonight because we've got windows all around.
Scott Maxwell was lucky to escape uninjured when a huge tree fell on his Currumbin home.
I woke up at 2 o'clock this morning with a loud thud and the whole house shook.
The savage conditions taking even experienced hands off guard.
I'm used to cyclones. So I come from Magnetic Island, North Queensland, so Category 5. I wasn't worried about Category 2. I should have been.
The Gold Coast's famous beaches, unrecognisable. Massive swells are gouging chunks out of the coastline, leaving a jagged wall of sand with a breathtaking drop.
We're all quiet. I think we're all in awe of what's happening right now.
Unbelievable what nature can do.
Structures now left exposed to the elements, and some hinterland roads are starting to go under. This lot will need a shower before they bunker down, potentially for a while.
It's possible that we're going to ask people to shelter for 24 to 36 hours.
One of the nation's most built-up regions is at the mercy of Tropical Cyclone Alfred. The storm's slow progress allowing for final walks and preparations in Brisbane this morning. After an agonising wait, most just want to see the back of it.
But now we're breathing deeply because the pause just adds a little bit more pressure.
We've both not been through anything like this before.
The power is probably the main concern.
City life has ground to a halt. The streets are mostly empty.
Humans rally in times of crisis, and people really, really have.
Potential projectiles have been corralled. Families are ready.
It's like you're waiting for a meal to come to the table and you're just sitting there waiting.
The Cyclone Alfred moves across the Moreton Bay Islands overnight. It's expected to weaken from a Category 2 to a Category 1 system before crossing the mainland tomorrow morning.
This will mean that destructive winds are unlikely for Brisbane itself, but damaging wind gusts to 120 kilometres per hour are expected.
While Alfred's slow pace has given southeast Queensland time to prepare, it comes with a sting in the tail. Authorities say it could take the tropical cyclone anywhere between 6 to 9 hours to cross the coast. In the process, it could dump life-threatening and dangerous flooding rains on low-lying areas. Rainfall totals for the event could reach 800 millimetres in some areas.
In this case, it is really large, and slow moving, and that does represent the prospect of some significant rainfall.
Potentially exceed the levels we saw in the 2022 flood. And so if that is not a reason to take this seriously, I don't know what is.
Authorities expect to release water from the region's main dams in the coming days. Islands just off the coast are already being pounded. Kangaroos are fleeing. Hatchlings are off to a turbulent start.
But it's coming now, you can feel it's in the air.
It'll be a sleepless night for many, with more to come as the expected flood disaster unfolds. Mark Willesee, ABC News, Brisbane.
If you're in an affected area and need local advice or emergency information, tune in to your local ABC radio station or visit the ABC Emergency website. You can find your local frequency at abc.net.au/emergency or listen via the ABC Listen app. That website also has plenty of useful information about how to prepare for natural disasters.